Okay, Mike, I appreciate that great introduction. You beat me to the punch. It was a absolute pleasure coaching your brother. What a great player he was, and getting a chance to get to know you and your mom and dad, just wonderful people. And that's what makes it fun coaching, is when you're around people like the Papali family. And after getting to know you, Mike, obviously got to know your story, and what a unbelievable thing you're doing for so many people. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. Um, and so let's begin. I think what I've tried to do in my career is really try to introduce a culture that I thought you could use to win and have success um, with my teams. I think I've at times felt really good about the culture that we had, and other times I did not feel it was a culture that was conducive to winning and having success. And so over the course of my 16 years coaching, I've just tried to trial and error come up with some things that I thought were good. I think the one thing that this will show you is kind of how we reinforce the same message over and over again. And I think that's one of the things I was missing the boat at times, is how I was able to kind of reinforce and keep our guys focused on things that we thought would impact having success. And so the first thing that I tried to do with this group, we had a group that was really smart and bright and intuitive. And what we try to do is have them be a bigger part of the process of creating goals for our team. Other teams I've had, I don't think I would have been able to give them the responsibility as much as I was able to give these guys responsibility. So the first thing we tried to do was say, okay, what do you guys want to get out of this experience? What are your outcome goals? And so they talked about winning the Patriot League regular season title, which we were 2 games away from doing that, at least getting a share of it. We wanted to win all our home games. We were 12-3 at home. And so we missed that one. And then we wanted to win the Patriot League title, and we got that. And again, these were goals that they came up with, that we supported as a group. And obviously they're going to take more ownership if they're creating the goals. The next thing we talked about was for them to come up with how are we going to get there, and come up with three goals that they thought would be good for us to be able to try to do to get to our outcome goals. So they actually talked about some things that I was really impressed with, that we had been focusing on. And these were all goals that, after the summer happened, we did this more in September. So again, this was reinforced throughout the year. So they talked about winning the free throw battle. So what goes into that is obviously not fouling, and also getting yourself to the foul line. So this kind of coincided with some of our offensive goals and things we wanted to do. So getting the ball into the paint to get to the foul line, whether it's on the dribble or on the pass, and also not fouling. They wanted to win the three-point battle, and they didn't really have an idea of like how that was going to happen. They just said, "Hey, we want to really shut down people's three-point percentage game," and then they wanted to do a much better job on the offensive rebound. And again, these were really good things, I thought, in terms of where their heads were going into the season, and things that they wanted to be able to do. And obviously they didn't elaborate on some of them, but I thought it was a good start. And as again, it's going to sound really redundant, because a lot of these things you're going to hear over and over again, which is actually a good thing at the end of the day, that we're reinforcing and we're talking about the same things. The next thing that I wanted to do is, and I did this really when our season was over. I really felt like we had struggled the year before. You see that handsome guy over to my left, Walter White, who's one of the better players in our league. He was injured in the 18-19 season, and it really impacted more than I even thought. But we were a really young team. We had 6 freshmen, and 5 of them were playing, or especially early in the year. And so we really struggled in some areas. And I thought the first thing that we really had to change was we had to get back to playing harder. And so we were talking about that. I really wanted to define what playing hard was. I didn't want to just talk about, playing hard. Oh, you got to play harder. Well, the kids need to know what that means, what that looks like, what that feels like. And so the first thing we talk about when we're talking about playing hard, we talk about having great communication and constantly talking to each other. And that could be with a chest bump, that could be with a fist bump, that could be with huddling up, but constantly pointing your finger after a made shot, talking to obviously your teammates defensively. But we wanted to talk about communication being really important. And then we wanted to get into physicality and what that meant, physicality in the paint. And so we talked about, not letting easy post-up opportunities. We talk about prime time catches, and that's a catch in the paint, on the block, a step off the block. We kind of wanted people to catch it further out. So not allowing the ball in the paint at all, not allowing the ball to be driven in the paint. And when it got driven in the paint, we wanted to be using a technique we call chesting, and just putting our chest on the defender, hands up, not fouling, not allowing a guy to pivot past you or even dribble past you. Once he got the ball in there, he felt the pressure of your body on his. And obviously that goes into talk about, rebounding, but which we'll get into next. Then we wanted to get to the 50-50 balls, that we thought that was really important aspect of the game. So when we were playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 in the off season, if that ball was loose, I was on them about getting to the ball, diving on loose balls, getting the loose balls. The next thing we talked about was rebounding. And when we were doing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, we were constantly going after the ball, whether it was offense or defense. And then we wanted to contest shots. And so I had them kind of verbalize this to me constantly in the spring and summer. What's playing hard? Give me an example of playing hard. What does that mean? And so they all knew what those 5 things were. And obviously there are a lot of things that can center around, but those are the 5 things that we try to focus on. And then we tried to really get them understanding that we had to improve defensively. We were a really bad defensive team the year before. We wanted to improve that, and we did. And we wanted to start really with a defensive mindset, defensive competitive mindset. So again, we're playing, everything's competitive, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. We charted every single time that they competed. When they played 5-on-5 pickup, we charted that. We had the older guys chart that. So now, after every week, we sat down as a team and went through who was getting the wins and who was getting the losses and everything that we were doing. And that became real competitive. So we wanted to kind of change their mindset. Even when we were doing shooting drills, we wanted them to have to compete against each other. And we did that constantly throughout the spring and summer and starting in the fall. So that was awesome for us to be able to start that process of competing in the off season. And then we just wanted to have a growth mentality. We wanted to always be thinking about and talking about getting better and what that meant. And we want the staff to feel that as well. The staff had to get better, and we had to get better together as a team. And so when we walked out there, we wanted to have a growth mentality and feel like we were getting better. And I would say things like that to them is, when we brought them in, if I wasn't happy with a drill, and I'd say, we're not getting better. We don't have a growth mentality right now. We got to change that. When practice is over, if we felt like we had a good practice, I would tell them, I thought that was great because I felt like we got better. We had a growth mentality. We we're always trying to get better. That's the goal. It's not always to try to win, to get better. And then we've really stressed individual improvement. Player development was huge going into the spring and summer in the early parts of the fall and even into our season. I gave them 2 or 3 things that I wanted them to focus on from a skill development standpoint that we try to focus on. And we had individual skill instruction with a coach, one-on-one at a basket for the majority of the time in the spring and summer. And obviously we grew in that and did some bigger groups, but we wanted to really feel like I wanted them to feel like they were getting better, and we needed those guys to get better. And then the last thing we want to do was have some fun, really enjoy the process more. And I had to really take that on. And that's not something I'm great at. I'm not great at you know, I put my coach's cap on when practice starts and I'm ready to go. So I had to really figure out ways that we could have some fun when we got into practice. So we had some music going through the stretching, through our shooting drills. We play some music and get it going a little bit. Our guys seem to really like that. We did some competitive drills that were fun, more than I had in the past. And this is an area that I want to continue to get better at with our players. But those were our team goals for the off season, kind of going into the season.
Coach, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna run a PowerPoint on my end because for some reason it's frozen right now. So I'm gonna share the screen and I'm gonna run it on my end.
Gotcha. You're on the offensive goals now?
Yep, I'm gonna get to it. You tell me if I'm in the
right now. That's where you should be right now.
Okay. And you tell me if you need me to go back or forward. I'll go right over to offensive goals. And you tell me what you need. If you need me to do anything, go back or whatever, I'll do it.
You got it, my man. Yeah. You got it. So then we went, I wanted them to know what, how do we want to play, and so we started talking about these things even in the spring, and we just kind of came up with some things that we wanted to emphasize with them. So we talked about running the floor, having great spacing, sharing the ball, valuing the ball, not turning it over, kind of playing inside out, side to side. And we constantly talked about this in the off season. We would actually show them footage in the off season, and we wanted that to really have an impact on how they were playing when they were playing 5-on-5 and talking to them about it. We wanted to have some carryover to what we were showing them to how they were playing. And sometimes we would show right before they went to play 5-on-5, we would kind of show some film of what we look like doing a good job of those things, or if we're struggling. Want to talk with pace. Want to talk about getting up and down the floor and how we wanted to space the floor as we played. We want to talk about quick decisions in the half court. I mean, we all know how, in the off season, how those things really deteriorate, and we wanted to try to build that up going into the season. These are all offensive goals that we carried over from the spring, and then we obviously want to talk about ball and player movement. Get to the next screen, Mike. And then these are some other things that we emphasize: is great spacing, post patterns, meaning when the ball went inside, how we wanted to play when the ball went in, and then drive in space on penetration, where the ball went in on the drive, how we wanted to look, the ball went inside on the pass, how we wanted to look, and then constantly talking about rebounding responsibilities. And again, a lot of this stuff is going to sound redundant because it gets reinforced over and over and the other things that we're trying to do. Next slide. So then now, just to show you, and you could run this right now, just to show you some things of what we wanted to emphasize, how we wanted to look when we played, just in transition, just attacking. And if they're not going to stop the ball, we want to really try to get into the paint and make a play. We want to try to throw the ball inside early. Max Mahoney here was a tremendous player. And here you go, that we go inside out twice to get him the ball. And now he's got 3 guys on him, and he scores with his left hand. What a wonderful player he was to play with. And so a lot of things we did was going in. Here we get it up. We want to get the ball up the floor on the pass as soon as possible. That actually allows us to get an angle now to go high-low. And Big Jack's going to make that one. Here we go. We want to early ball screens in transition and play. We get penetration, trying to get the ball into the paint and make plays. Another step-up ball screen. We're able to get in here. And now we get a great 45 cut from the weak side. So these are all things we try to emphasize as we start to play in transition. Now we go into ball movement, player movement, playing against a great South Carolina team, which we had a chance to beat in a great game. Here's a driving kick, just trying to get the ball into the paint, make plays for each other. Here's an example against another tough Vermont team at their place. Great back cut there. Another step-up ball screen here. Now we're able to go high-low. Another penetration. I'd say we're able to get the ball in the paint twice. And so that's another thing we talked about, is trying to get a couple of paint touches. Here we go again. Here's that high-low look that I was talking about. Great pass, great seal. And so these are some things that we try to emphasize here. Good pace. we get this big lifting up, and now we go to a little pin down screen on this side, and we're able to kind of turn the corner and able to get a throwback to a drive and finish. We talk about cutting. Cutting's big for us. The Marion cut we talk about is just a cut that we use to cut from the baseline side. And we're constantly talking to those guys about trying to cut on penetration. We don't always just want to get threes. We want to get layups too. And this is a way that we're able to get it, just kind of cutting in behind the defense. Here's another one here off the penetration. Petcash cuts base, backdoor, post patterns, and we threw the ball inside a lot. So different ways that we scored. Here's just getting it in, and Max making a great baseline move. But because he was such a great player, and that we knew their defense was going to do different. There's 3 guys on him. We just get an inside-out kick. Here's another one. We stay with it. They knock him down. I'm complaining to the ref. We stay with it. Now they're coming with the double team. Now we get a kick out to a 45 cut to a ball reversal 3. And so there are different ways that we just try to attack the defense once the ball went inside, depending on how they were guarding us. 45 cut off the post. And here's a great one. We get a 45 cut to a skip pass. So those are just different ways that we were able to score. Here's a look where they go double and we go big to big. We just get them to the block and finish. And now you can go to the next screen, Mike. You can pause it now and get to the next screen. So then we talked about what are our defensive goals now? What are we trying to do defensively? And so we talked about really getting better playing one-on-one. And again, we started these goals, kind of talking about these goals early on in the spring, and then talking about them constantly in the summer and into the early parts of the fall. So we wanted to be a much better team at being able to guard the ball. So we played one-on-one from the wing, from the block, from the elbow, top of the key, half court, full court one-on-one, closeout one-on-one, one dribble, no dribbles, 3 dribbles. You name it, we did it. We got creative with it. And again, we charted it throughout the year. We played one-on-one all the way through. I say the last half to third of our season, we probably played less of it, but we were playing one-on-one constantly. And you really see, you really can have a chance to see who really wants to compete. We talked hard about defensive positioning. We kind of changed our philosophy a little bit in the fact that we started to try to help on the ball a little bit more than we did the year before. We thought we were really spaced out defensively and didn't do a really good job when we needed to. So we really focused in hard on our defensive positioning. We talked a lot about transition defense, what we want to do. And when we talk about transition defense, we kind of added rebounding in there. And again, these things I'll be talking about and other things that we were doing. The next thing that we wanted to focus on was really getting better with our ball screen defense. The year before, we were really poor in our ball screen defense. We were low showing a lot, and we were getting torched at the rim. We didn't have great size. We didn't know when to switch. We really struggled. So we tried to be a little more aggressive on the ball. And people talk about not putting 2 on the ball, but that was the best that I think that our team could do at the time. And so we talked about that, and then had to get really good at what those other 3 dudes were doing as well. And then we also switched a lot. So we would work on that and talk about switching up so we weren't giving up shots. So that was a big part of trying to get better defensively and things that we talked about in terms of what our goals were, trying to really improve in that area. And then the last one was really trying to limit our fouls, which they actually talked about, kind of winning that free throw battle. So something that was in their heads that we were able to reinforce again through our defensive game goals. Go ahead, Mike. Now these are all goals that we keep after every game. They're on a board. We chart it. We go over it. This was the first year that we were really consistent at going over it each and every game. I think in the past, if we really didn't have if we didn't play well at times, and I didn't want to start negatively, we may have not gone over the game. But this is something that we really took pride in, going over after every game and talking about each of these game goals. And so we start with our bricks, and the brick is basically just trying to chart our stops. 3 bricks, 3 stops in a row is 1 brick, and you're trying to get 6 for the game. We did a really good job. And I have to say, this was the first year we were pretty consistent, I thought, at getting our game goals and getting the majority of them. And I thought a lot of it was because it was reinforced in the off season and carried over through the season, holding our opposition to 43%, defensive field goal percentage, under 43% or under, winning the 50-50 battle, meaning trying to get to every loose ball, which we started. Again, it was what we talked about when we were playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and now it became one of our game goals. Go ahead, Mike. Then we want to win that free throw battle, shoot more free throws than our opponents. We want 12 turnovers or less, and then we want to be able to get to the offensive glass 33%, and get 33% of our misses, and obviously defensive rebounds 73% of our misses. Go ahead, buddy. And so then we started to talk about that was it for our game goals, and then this was another chart that we had that was offensive rebounding, defensive transition, and how we could chart that, because we wanted 5 and 4, and sometimes our 3, depending on who it was, to go to the offensive glass. So we had a separate category for this, and this really helped improve our stuff. You know, even going back to the game goals, our guys, we would clap after every time that we got a game goal. Our players really got into it this year more than any other year. I think they really saw the value in what we were doing, and this chart was no different. And so we would basically say, like, all right, if you were a rebounder, you know, you're getting evaluated on whether or not you went after the ball. If you were someone that was a safety guy, we wanted to see, all right, did you really sprint back on the rise of the ball? And so it was simple. If you crashed 7 times to go get the offensive rebound, and you had 10 times where you should have went, then your score was 70. We were trying to get a score of 90, and we weren't quite there. It's an area that we can get better at, but you'll see later on in another chart and how we improve from one year to the next. Go ahead, Mike. And so, I talked about the safeties and then the crashers in terms of rebounding responsibilities. Go ahead, you get to the next one. So we broke them up into 2 categories. And so this was our team for the year. Soup Mathon is a big, so he went 93% of the time to the glass. That is unbelievable. He played about 16 minutes, so we were getting a lot out of him. Jack Hemphill played about 8 minutes a game, and he went 88% of the time to the glass. Those guys were bigs. Britton Watts was a guard off the bench, so his job was to get back on the rise of the ball, and he did that 87% of the time. That's a really good score. Andrew Petcash was a guy off the bench, a guard off the bench, and again, he was a transition defensive guy, getting back on the raise of the ball. Max Mahoney was a post player. He went 79% of the time. So you can see now as we start to go, those top guys, even Soup was a starter, but he played 16 minutes a game. The guys that played more minutes were, it was harder for those guys to do what we were trying to get them to do at the level that we wanted to get them to do it. So there's a lot of room for improvement in this area, in the 2 areas of guys getting back on defense and also going to the glass. And again, as we were going and we were getting better at this as the year was going, the guys got really into it. And these things give a kid that maybe, because we know all the stuff is going to, all the accolades and attention are going to the players that are scoring the points. And this is an area of somebody can feel good about their ability to even just get back on defense, and how important it is that, and then how you're doing a good job of just kind of going to the glass and putting pressure on defense, and how that can help you win. So these are things that anybody can do, and it can make some guys feel good. Like Soup Mathon is not a guy that scored a lot of points, but he did a lot of things to help us win. Go ahead, Mike. And so now this is basically, we're saying he got 6.8% of the rebounds that he went after in 18-19, and then the following year he got 12.9. So he did a phenomenal job of, and these are the percentage of rebounds that he was able to secure when he was in the game. Outstanding number. Jack Hemphill went up from 7.1 to 11.6, and I'm telling you, a lot had to do with us reinforcing that through our rebounding defensive transition chart that we used. Walter White went from 6.9 to 8.1. Fletcher went from 4.2 to 5.1, and Max Mahoney went from 11.5 to 12.2. And we were one of the better offensive and defensive and team rebounding teams in our league this year. And I got to say, a lot had to do with how we were reinforcing this year. Go ahead, buddy. So now we have a chart that we use to really highlight all the hustle things and a lot of the things that we're talking about. And again, we have some rebounding stuff in this chart, but it's a great way to give credit to guys that are doing all the dirty work, all the things that are helping your team win. You know, I stole this from Coach Wright, who's a phenomenal coach, and I saw value in it when I worked for him at Villanova. And this was one of the first years I think our guys really bought into the level that you have to buy into to make this work. And basically, it's very simple. You get a point for when you make a mistake, and then the way that you can improve your score is by taking charges, walling up, and grabbing 50-50 balls. Those are the three areas where you can get a point. So basically, you're a +1 if you don't do the things that we talk about doing. You're a -1 if you take a charge, wall up, or grab a rebound. And basically, what you're doing is deducting a point when you do those three things well. So go ahead. This is what the chart looks like for us. And again, I can share this with you, just kind of, and you can get to the next one because we kind of highlight. And these are, you know, I put this down quickly so you can see it. And now we're going to define what all those things are. Go ahead, Mike. So basically, a middle drive or a paint allowed is self-explanatory, you know, allowing someone to drive the ball into the paint. You know, we try not to give up middle drives. And so we're trying to take away the middle drives, and we're trying to take away post touches. And we want people to catch the ball out of prime time and have to back you in to score. Positioning, we're really trying to chart at that point on a scoring possession. We're really doing on scoring possessions. We didn't do it on every possession. You can do that too, but on scoring possessions where you're in the right position, which was really important for us this year. We did a much better job of being in the gaps and being in the zone and where we need to be. Our ball screen defense, what we did was we kind of charted what the two guys did that were on the ball. And obviously you can add the three guys around it, but we use that more for positioning. And so we don't want to give up bingo. That's when you able to refuse the ball screen, talk about our guards getting over the top when we were in our blue coverage, which is our hedge. And then did our bigs get to the line of scrimmage and were they able to kind of help contain the ball with the guards. So, you know, some of this stuff is subjective, but I thought our assistants did a really good job of understanding what I would want in those situations. Go ahead, buddy. And then we would go contesting shots, and obviously remember that was one of our goals early on. Team goals was defensive goals was we wanted to make sure we contest every shot. We talked about closeouts and how we want to be able to get there and contain the ball, and obviously blockouts. You know, did we block out and go for the ball? You know, that was a big thing for us as well. Turnovers, and that was one of the early goals that we had, taking care of the basketball, fouling. You know, this really has helped us reinforce that, you know, they go to their chart, they see, man, I fouled, you know, 4 times, I got to cut that down. I'm killing my attitude numbers. You know, they started to really take pride in that. And we, again, would reinforce that. And each guy had an attitude chart edit that we would do, positive and negatively, that they could see after every game. So we were able to reinforce that. And that was an individual film session that we did with our players. Transition defense, we talked about that, but that is also in the attitude chart as well. And the rebounding and the rebounding in transition defense categories are in this as well. So we're kind of reinforcing that through a couple of charts. Go ahead. And then the 50-50 balls, and then the charging the wall up are ways that you can improve your score. And so this was an attitude chart would look like. This what a video would look like. And here Max gets beat to the middle of the floor on the spin move, so that would be deducted. And also we probably would deduct the guys that are off the ball that aren't in the right position. Here you go here with a middle drive. So the kid Tynan got beat on the middle drive, but also Jonas off the ball wasn't in position to help contain it. Here's a closeout. Javante McCoy is late, and so he gets deducted. Even though that guy's a shooter, he gets deducted because he was late on the closeout. Here's a ball screen defense. Weren't able to contain the ball. Both guys would get penalized for that. We didn't switch up. That's a switch with Walter White. He always switches ball screen, so we didn't switch up, and we gave up a 3. And here's a ball screen where he was able to beat his man off the dribble and then offensive rebound. So again, pause it for a second, Mike. Some of this stuff is subjective on who should get deducted points. Here's a great wall up. You can go now. Here's a great wall up. Max does a great job of walling up, so he would get deducted a point here to improve his score. And here's a charge. This could be a questionable charge, but this is a play that we knew the kid really liked to go middle and lower his shoulder, so we were able to pick up a charge there. Just transition. These are transition clips, and we would show them just not stopping the ball. And this would be in a team clip, but also it would be in some of the individual clips that we had. Another transition play, and just not stopping the ball, not getting matched up quick enough, and giving up threes. And again, it'd be subjective on who was most important, who was most at fault there. But those are some of the things that we're able to do in terms of showing people our chart. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about is just like our core values. I thought this really helped us as well. And we kind of allowed them again. This is the first team that I kind of allowed to have a hand in a lot of the goals, the core values. It was a group that could really handle that. They did a phenomenal job at coming up with our core values. We've worked with different people, different periods of time. Worked with George Mumford, who does mindfulness training and also helps to build core values and team building. We worked with him 2 summers ago, and so he helped the group kind of come up with these core values. And after they came up with the 5 core values, I went back to them and said, okay, I want you to define what they mean. And I just didn't want to have some words that didn't mean anything, and I wanted to understand a little bit more about what they thought they meant and how it could impact, really the culture that we were trying to build. And so they talked about relentlessness, and that would be trying hard and failing 9 times out of 10, but pushing as hard as you can, even on the 10th time. And again, these are their words. Integrity, being disciplined within yourself to make sure you don't cut corners and cheat yourself, then making sure you don't cheat your teammates, and finally holding yourself and your teammates accountable. Open-mindedness was being able to set aside of your own interest to help the good of the team, sacrifice your own wants and needs for the greater good, being open to criticism, instruction, and advice from coaches. Brotherhood, a close unit of young men with a common goal, a willingness to do battle with a brother or teammate to your right or left, giving up of yourself to the aid of brother. And lastly, loving the process of getting better with all its bumps in the road, including the love of the game of basketball, so you enjoy playing and working on your own personal skill, as well as loving the little things aside from scoring, getting assists, rebound, charges, high fives, etc. I thought this year, if you talk to our players, I think they felt really good about their ability to be relentless. We had a ton of games, especially in the last third of the season, where we were down big and we had to battle back. We went from a team that was 3-8 at a time to winning our conference tournament. And winning 21 games. I thought they felt really good about their sense of brotherhood. I would tell you that'd be the first core value that I think was most important to them. They have a really strong bond. They worked hard at it. We went to Spain this summer, and I thought that really helped us come together. And they talk about that a lot. And then I saw their love for the game. We really had a ton of guys that did extra work, that would come in early, come back on weekends, days off. You saw a lot of guys put in the time, and also guys that would take pride and doing the little things, getting charges, getting the loose balls, rebounds. You saw a lot of guys kind of take pride in those things. So I thought our what we were valuing in terms of what we were charting, what our game goals were reinforced with some of these core values as well. And I would tell you the last thing that I think integrity is one that we got to talk about more, and what that means. And that's an area that we probably don't dive into a ton, but we do talk about open-mindedness a lot. And I think that's the one area where we can really get better at. We gave them an evaluation of the year and what they thought the staff did a good job of, things that areas we can improve on, and also themselves, and talked about our core values. And that was the one that came up that they felt like they needed to get better at in terms of really interacting with each other and how they're able to do that and allow themselves to be criticized by each other and also take the advice from coaches. So this was, it's a union that we have right now. I think our guys really understand what we're trying to do. They know they have a voice in what we're doing. And I think with all the things that we're doing, and at the end of the day, we're all on the same page, trying to do the same things because it's consistently being talked about throughout the year, kind of how we set up our spring in terms of what our goals are and what we're trying to show them, all the way to what our game goals are, to our attitude chart, to our offensive rebounding, transition defensive chart that we use. It's reinforced, and I think it's been helpful for us. So, Mike, at this time, I'd be prepared to take any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, we got a few that came through as we were going. If anybody has any more, definitely throw them in the Q&A there. But first one that I have that someone threw in was, during a season, it goes up and down, right? You win games, like you mentioned at the end of the PowerPoint. You guys were 3-8 at one point this year, and you talked a lot about culture. What are some things you do to kind of keep this culture and keep the right attitude and keep all the things that are your cores when things are going bad?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that we can't look at the win-loss record and get too crazy about our record. I think we got to focus more on, are we doing things the right way? And so what we try to do is, with our chart, is said, okay, we didn't win, but what are some things we did well, and what are some areas we have to get better at? And that's kind of how we try to view the games and get them more focused in what we're doing well and what we can do a better job of. And all these things are kind of things that we're talking about that coincide with how we're building and maintaining our culture.
Okay, another question. So as a coach, what are some things you can do? Like, you obviously have your culture that you want to put on the program. If you have what happens to be your best player, that just doesn't seem like he wants to buy in.
Yeah, and we've had that. We've had that. And I think what you have to do is you can't settle. I think the more they're all watching how you're going to react. They're watching how you're going to discipline your better players. And I think it's very hard to have a really good team if your best player is not buying in. And I've had that. And so there are times where I feel like I didn't make a great choice because maybe I played them more minutes than I should have, or I overlooked some things that I shouldn't. And I think we all done that because we're trying to win games. But I think the biggest thing you got to try to do is get the right kids. And so you're not running into that problem at times, but you're definitely at times going to get stretched in terms of what decisions that you're going to make when your best players are not buying in. And I say it's easy to say this, but I think the more that you can discipline him, the better at the end of the day for your team. And you may lose some games, but later on you may end up winning because you get him to buy in, because you're not giving in to things that you think are important. I think you as a coach have to understand, okay, what are the important things? And if he's not doing those important things, then you gotta do what's right.
Cool. All right. So I know you said you did question came through talking about your one-on-one competition drills throughout the off season. Is there any incentive that, for the guys, or is this kind of like a pride thing of who wins the most games?
Yeah, and we've done different things we've done different things like that. We've had, for a guy that wins the one-on-one, we've taken him out to lunch or we've taken him out to dinner. We've done things like that in the past. I don't know if we did. I can't remember if we did anything this year, but in the past we definitely have done some things. But it's been more of a pride thing in terms of, and our guys, they really have taken to it because they know it's going to impact. They know, like a guy like Suk may have not have scored a ton, but he's a great defender and rebounds, and he's been a starter. He played 26 minutes in the championship game and helped us win. And he's not a guy that got a ton of touches, but he defended and rebounded at a high level. He played. Jonas Harper was a guy that played that was a starter this year. That played major minutes, and it was because he was a great defender. He could make a shot, but he's also a great defender. And so they know what's important, because we got the right types of kids in our program. So it's easier for it to work. When you don't have that, it makes it harder.
So right now, I think this is actually a great question that came through because everybody's dealing with this, and we only have time for a couple more, but this is one I wanted to hit. With everything going on with COVID-19, you talked a lot about culture, and I know you're limited by some rules and stuff, but is there anything you're doing to kind of keep this culture in your program right now when you really can't be face-to-face with your guys?
This has been so, the first couple of weeks, to be honest with you, Mike, I kind of was like, all right, we just ended our season. I kind of gave them some time to kind of, chill out for 2 weeks. We had one Zoom meeting, but now it's like on now because I'm ready, to get back going. So now it's like, all right, what can we do? Exactly to your question, what can we do? And so we're trying to formulate. We're like everybody else. We're trying to figure this out. This is new. Mm-hmm. This is new territory for everybody. So the one thing I would say that we try to do that I have on my mind right now, because we just lost Max Mahoney, who was an unbelievable leader, unbelievable. And we can't lose sight of that, right? So the players they understand how good he was, but they'll think like, oh, we can go do this again, or we can go have success again, or the coach is going to, but as a coach and as an adult, it's going to take work for us to maintain this and get this, improve it. So what we try to do right now is, can I work with my upperclassmen? Can I give them some responsibility now that can help impact our culture? So what we did was when the season was over, we wanted to get feedback from them about our season. So like I said, we asked them questions like, what did the staff do well? And what are things that the staff can do better? What are things that you guys thought we did well as a team? What can we do better? What hurt our, these are our goals, what impacted our goals in a positive way? What are reasons why we weren't able to achieve some of our goals? So we were able to get some information from them. So what I did was, instead of me communicating to them on a Zoom call, what I did was I gave each of our upperclassmen responsibility to be in charge of a small group. So when we got together, we said, okay, we're going to talk about the impact of our core values in terms of our goals. And so we broke them up into small groups, but I made our upperclassmen be the moderators for that group, and they had to kind of write down what was being said in their group meetings. And then when we got back as a team, those guys had to speak on what their groups talked about. And so those were ways that we can get our older guys kind of speaking and taking more control. We're going to start with our strength training, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can get our upperclassmen involved in the leadership role in our strength training. So we're going to break those guys up into smaller groups, and we're going to do a contest and do the gains and certain things, certain areas. And so we can get, some camaraderie amongst the team, but also get the upperclassmen going. And then we're doing the same thing with our freshmen. We have our upperclassmen starting now. They have to contact the freshmen, and then we'll have the younger guys do it. And so now we're just trying to figure out ways that we can kind of keep this going. But it's a challenge, but those are some of the things that we're doing.
Awesome. All right, last one, Coach. Just with your goals, I know you have a lot of different like season goals, game goals. Is this like a year by year thing? Do you guys kind of meet as a staff and kind of look at your personnel and say, okay, this is what's realistic for our team, or is it just kind of a program thing?
So I gave this team a lot of leeway with stuff. Yeah. In other years, we may have not done as much. This was a year we did a lot. We did a lot of stuff. Like, I wanted to make sure that they understood in the spring what we were trying to accomplish. What were we trying to do this spring? And then, the playing hard things that we tried to do. But the goals for the goals that, that they set late, or actually in September, were all things that I just allowed them to do. So I don't know if I'll do it exactly the way I did it this year. I have to kind of see and get a feel for, I think I have to have a feel for what your team needs at certain times. This just worked with this group. And like you can see, there were a lot of, I think we focused on certain things at certain segments of the year. But you could see it was reinforced, a lot of things that were reinforced as we were going. We weren't talking so much about, all right, these were our outcome goals when we started. These are our goals. We had one meeting to talk about our outcome goals and our process goals before we started our league season. We kind of wanted to go back and, talk about those things, but they were already being reinforced in our attitude chart and the other things that we were talking about, if that makes sense.
Right. Definitely. Cool. Awesome. All right, Coach. Thank you again for your time. That was great. I think it's, again, relatable for coaches of all levels. We've been lucky. We had a great turnout for this. A lot of people watching, a lot of coaches that coach, men, women, high school, college. So everything you said, I think, translates at every level, which is awesome. So I really appreciate it.
I think the last thing, if anyone wants to contact me, my email, I don't know if they have it, is jjones11@bu.edu. If you shoot me an email, I can send you the charts. I can send you all the stuff that I just went over. You can call me. We can talk. I'm not doing anything. I'm in my basement right now, just trying to figure out ways we can get better as a team. But anyone that needs any help or wants to talk about some of the things that we discussed, feel free to email me or call me. My number is 781-690-8614. I'll take all comers.
Awesome, Coach. That's awesome. That's generous of you. And I know a couple people definitely were asking about the chart, so that's great. So,
okay.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Coach. Stay healthy.
You got it, Mike.
If he's healthy, we'll talk to you soon.
You got it, buddy. Take care.